Hello everybody, happy Wednesday afternoon. My name is Elise and welcome to my tea table. It's Wednesday, that means Constitution Study Group, and we're gonna kick off this Pride Month with a focus of today's study group on the constitutional considerations of the LGBTQ plus community. I actually went over this topic not too long ago, maybe just a few months ago. So this is kind of a continuation on that, and it is specifically targeting the trans community. There's a lot of action, a lot of activism going on to address specifically young members of the trans community. So I'm gonna read an article I found in the paper today that is actually a good story of a school district actually standing up for their students. Last time I went over this topic, the stories weren't so good. They were kind of sad, really showcasing the true state we're at with this struggle for solidarity and also recognition and respect for people of what they want, regardless, what they want to identify with. So in addition to looking at the article, I also did want to have some discussion, possible discourse. I always welcome that around here, around the concept of solidarity and how we can best not only just accept solidarity as something that needs to happen, but truly support it in a sustainable way where it will actually provide true confidence, true dignity, and true civility in how we interact with one another. Because, especially in this specific situation, this specific argument that's happening in the media around trans rights of children, we are entrusting children to handle these concepts, especially around concepts of solidarity. So not only of being able to self-identify and find self-respect, but also, this also involves the students that aren't being oppressed. And these are good-hearted people that at the core of it, because they are children, truly understand the meaning of civility, which is simply our capacity for politeness. Children very much understand that concept. They want to live that concept. And so if we don't have these discussions and we don't involve the children in these discussions, we're going to leave it up to them to handle the solidarity. And so I'm going to pull up some Google Scholar articles around the psychology of solidarity. So, as we live in our own communities and interact with our own children, we know how to best equip them to handle these concepts, because they're huge, they're big concepts. And when everything has been tabooized and politicized, it's like, oh, don't talk to the children about it. But maybe we do need to talk to the children about it so that that way they can better wrap their head around these concepts and activate better, act better. Not just for themselves, but for their peers, because ultimately the majority of the people, majority of children, are not directly dealing with this oppression, right? This is a minority issue, but the majority of children want to be civilized. They want to have friends, they want to be friendly, and so I think that's one thing in this conversation that's left out oftentimes. And leave it up to TikTok. I saw a video of a mother talking about a story with her own child that really kind of triggered that in my brain of oh yeah, that does happen. Children must be so confused about this and not understanding how to do it themselves. Hi Roy, I don't know if that's you, Roy, but happy Pride Month. Um, I don't think I've ever seen you here in the live stream, so it's good to see you. Um, on Wednesdays, I come on and I do a Constitution study group, totally like high school level Constitution study group, but it's good. It's like really good to like get down to the roots of things and really understand the intentions of our society and how we can best equip ourselves to be polite with one another. I'm gonna drink some tea, of course. I'm gonna get that going. I love this backdrop. I've got this stormy rainbow going on. I just love it. Oh man, it's just perfect. It's just perfect. I hope everybody's having a great week so far. I am super hot. I think we're at like 106 today here in Vegas, so we're there. We're in the summer. It's summertime. We're hot, but surprisingly still staying pretty cool in the warehouse. We'll see how long this lasts. The word cool there was a very nice word to use here. But happy Pride Month. You know, I'm sure you saw all your favorite brands turn their logos over to address Pride Month. This is the best I'll ever do. I'm not one to change our story or change our messaging, but that's what's great about doing this live streaming, is that every day I come on and I get to talk about a different topic, and that's where I can fit in, you know, the timing, the seasonality of what's going on. But this is definitely not the first time that we have talked about LGBTQ plus considerations in this Constitution study group. In fact, the very same topic that I'll be bringing up the article on today, I spoke on a few months ago, so this is kind of a continuation of that talk. Got my boiling water ready to go. I'll scooch you over a little bit more so that way y'all can see my face. A little bit. I'm gonna be cruising. I'm gonna sit in my chair. Usually I'm standing the entire street, but I'm gonna be cruising here. As always, music provided by our dear friend Sojourner. I'm gonna be drinking the same tea I was drinking last night, so nothing fancy. I was drinking some leftover jasmine green tea from a packing gig I had to do yesterday. And getting ready. In a few days, I will be flying out to New York City this weekend. Going to be live streaming a very exciting tea and culture event, which is also an open garden day. So I will be doing some IRL streaming from the garden. They're from the various green thumb gardens throughout the New York City area. There's going to be tea performances, workshops, of course, tours of the gardens, and live music. So really looking forward to going out there and documenting all of that and sharing that experience for you. The best experience to view that on Saturday will be at tlet.tv. Simple, easy. That's just our Twitch channel. So, you know, I will be streaming it everywhere to the Facebook and Twitter, YouTube, but Twitch is more fun. That's like where the community is. Hi, Jim. Good to see ya. Yeah, it should be very interesting. Should be very, very interesting. I'm excited for it. I should be, actually yesterday, June 1st, was supposed to be the first day of the virtual tea festival Amazing Tea Race. But because of, you know, the delays in getting the tea samples over and lots of other things, have ended up delaying that event until the end of June. So this spring tea in the garden was supposed to be one of the events of the virtual tea festival that I was doing from here in my studio, but now I get to go in person and stream it, so it'll be even better. And then the virtual tea festival, amazing tea race, will be happening June 20th to the 26th. Yeah, Jim, are you working? You're in the middle of your busy work day. Well, I hope you're doing well, Jim. I hope your family visit was fruitful as well, and the weather was good for you all. The weather here in Vegas is getting hot. It was hot. Bitcoin is like exhausted. We went out for an errand and he was exhausted. We got back into the office and he just like plooped on the ground, just bleh. Well, that's good to hear, Jim. Did you share tea with your family? Because I know that's a new thing that must be new for your family to see for you, drinking tea and getting into tea. Hopefully you got to share that experience with them. Oh, good. You did have so much fun. Great. Eat some good food, I'm sure. I'm just using my little gold leaf strainer here to strain out any of those little tea leaf chunks that might get out in my tea. Usually this thing would just rest right on top of my pitcher, but because I'm using this bowl as a pitcher, it's too big. The mouth of the bowl is too big for this strainer. This is a green tea scented with jasmine flowers. Beautiful aroma, super flowery. That's funny, the fan, because I have a fan rolling in. It's in the 90s. Well, hey, that's hot for Portland. So man, you're having a heat wave for sure. Yeah, we're at like 106 today here in Vegas, which for Vegas that's not a heat wave. That's just standard. So like we're just seasonal, temperate for us. But yeah, I've got a fan rolling in on me on this side. Let me turn it. Maybe that'll help stop the green screen from getting blown in the wind. That helps at all. Helped a little bit. All right, cool. Your family would love it, Jim. Even if you don't have time to do like the hot tea preparation, I'm sure if you did cold brew with them, they would really love it. Everybody loves cold brew. With some fruits. So like you can put your tea leaf in a bottle or a jug that you brew it at room temperature water overnight. You can even brew it in the fridge. It doesn't have to be room temp. And then when you decant the leaf and decant the tea from it, you can throw in cut fruits and other things too. You can throw in flowers or other herbs if that's the essence you want from it. But fruits are really nice, and they add like a sweetness as well. So whatever's seasonal and in abundance to you, you could just throw right in there. Not the greatest quality tea, but it's good enough, and it doesn't give me a headache. So that's like my main gauge of a tea that's drinkable, like that it has clean energy, is that it doesn't give me a headache, because I'm very responsive to wonky energy, as I call it, when the tea has crazy energetics to it. Yeah, that might be an easy way just to get everybody to drink it, because like when it's cold brewed like that, especially with some cut fruit in there, it's really refreshing and easy to drink. Super easy to drink. And then it's easy to prepare. So like your granddaughters, perhaps you can make that an activity to do together. coins are upside down. Get that right. Alright, I'm gonna move on to the article that I found today. So this was published today. Brand spanking news. Right, is that, or is it brand spanking new news? I don't like saying new news. I'll just cut out the new and leave news. But this is from NPR, which, you know, tends to be the main, like, mainstream news source that I will always go to. I think it does lean towards progressive or liberal ideology, but I don't find there to be like major propaganda there, but who knows, maybe. I'm not vetting this as a news source. I'm just saying this is what, you know, where I found this article. Coming from Virginia. Let me just get one more steep in before I put my water back. It is titled, "A Virginia Teacher Was Put on Leave After Opposing New Rights for Trans Students." So, the last time I talked on this subject, it was announcing these new rights that would include trans people in lots of rights, which other members of the LGBTQ plus community had already been addressed with this specific law, which is the civil rights law, but in the newest version that was passed a few months ago, it was to include specifically trans people. They had been left out before. But now, you have people continuing to fight it. And the last time I talked about this, we definitely heard quotes from people that were citing religious reasons of why they couldn't support these new rights. So let's see what this article is about, coming all the way from Virginia. A Virginia elementary school teacher is suing the Loudoun County School Board after he was suspended following comments he made against a proposed new policy that would expand rights for transgender students. Byron Tanner Cross, a physical education teacher at Leesburg Elementary School in Leesburg, Virginia, said during a May 25th public meeting that recognizing a student's gender identity, if different from their sex assigned at birth, goes against his religious beliefs. "I love all of my students, but I will never lie to them regardless of the consequences," Cross said. True love. "I'm a teacher, but I serve God first. And I will not affirm that a biological boy can be a girl and vice versa because it's against my religion," said Cross, who says he is Christian. "It's lying to children, it's abuse to children, and it's sinning against my God." Or our God, sorry. He didn't say my God, he said our God. 2 days after the public meeting, Lucia Villa Sebastian, Loudoun County Public Schools interim assistant superintendent for human resources and talent development, informed Cross in a letter that he was being put on administrative leave with pay as the district investigated allegations of conduct that has had a disruptive impact on the operations of Leesburg Elementary School. Well, dang, he's getting paid. Cross's lawsuit, filed Tuesday in Virginia Circuit Court for Loudoun County, claims that the school district retaliated against him for his comments during the public meeting and that his suspension constituted a violation of his rights, freedom of speech, and religion. Wade Byard, the Loudoun County Public Schools Public Information Officer, confirmed that Cross had been put on leave but said state and federal law prohibits the district from disclosing the reason for his suspension. At the public meeting, Cross rose in opposition to draft policy 8040, a proposal that would allow transgender and gender expansive students to use names and pronouns outside their legal names and regardless of the name and gender reported in the student's permanent educational record. School staff would be required to use names outside students' legal name if the student or their parents or guardian requested it. The proposal would also amend an existing school district policy by allowing students to participate in activities such as sports in a manner consistent with the student's gender identity. Several states, including Idaho, Florida, and Tennessee, have recently enacted laws restricting the ability of transgender athletes to participate in sports based on their gender identity rather than their sex assigned at birth. And that was also another specific news that we went over last time we talked on this topic. Byard, the Loudoun County Public Schools Public Information Officer, said the proposal would align district policy with the Code of Virginia and the Virginia Department of Education's guideline for the treatment of transgender students. During his comments at the public meeting, Cross said he was expressing concerns for students with gender dysphoria and cited a recent report on the CBS News broadcast 60 Minutes that featured some transgender children who decided to reverse the transitioning process. Right, so it's no longer just about his religion. Now he's trying to cite science, behind his prejudice. But in that science that he's addressing there, this report from CBS News, I did not watch that report, but I could only imagine what happened there. And this is kind of related to what I want to evolve this conversation to, not about judging and criticizing that people, children who are people, are reversing their decisions of transitions that they've decided to make. I think it's a valid issue. But instead of demonizing it, instead of saying that this is a problem and this is why we shouldn't support trans rights, it's an opportunity for us to open the dialogue with children and to engage them with this topic instead of pretending like children aren't people and children can't make decisions for themselves, because that could be a source of this gender dysphoria. That we're not actively engaging children in that conversation because it's taboo. But the children are obviously engaging in this decision, right? Because they're making this decision for themselves. And there's cases here, as this report, CBS News report made, of children deciding that they want to reverse their decision. So it's valid, and I want to talk about that and how we can approach this in a civilized manner, civilized not only to other adults and to people with different religious viewpoints, but also civilized to the children, because the children also deserve civility. Oh, that's good. Jim, you work for a Catholic health organization. I didn't know that. You're working on how to be inclusive of all people, including those discussed in this article. Yeah, it's a serious issue. It's a serious issue, and I am not experienced or educated at all on this topic. I am just trying to open up some conversation around how as walking in the dark as we all are, that's all we can do, right, is better empower ourselves to communicate, not only with the healthcare system, not only with the education system, not only with the voter rights system, which I found another article just to kind of set some more precedent on how trans rights have been addressed in our Constitution or with our Constitution. But really, how do we talk to children about it to ensure that they are making the right decisions for themselves? Because in that TikTok video that I saw, a woman, a mother, told a story about how her child came home and announced that she wanted to change her pronouns. And the mother was supportive of it. All right, Jim, see ya. Have a good rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see you on Saturday. Much love, Jim, much love. So the mother was supportive. You know, she's one of those kinds of moms, so that's good. Started out with that. But she did mention that she was surprised that her daughter made that decision. But she still wanted to support it, and she told her daughter, I'm here to talk about it. You know, I'll talk with you about it. I want to talk with you about it. And the daughter said, no, I don't want to talk about it. I just made this decision and that's it. And so the mom supported that and just said, okay, well, when you're ready to talk about it, we can talk about it. And then the daughter goes to her room and comes back later on and says, you know what, Mom, I figured out that wasn't the right decision for me. The reason why I thought I wanted to change my pronouns is because there's someone else at my school that wanted to change their pronouns, and I knew that they were going to be alone and that they were going to have a hard time with that. So I wanted to change my pronouns to not make them alone, which is an act of solidarity, which is amazing, which is like default mode for children, right? Like, children want to be civilized. They will be civilized. This type of stuff happens, and there's a lot in that story. And when we don't engage children with these mature conversations, but then we want to set up the laws to allow them to have the right to make those kinds of decisions for themselves, which is absolutely awesome. We also need to equip them with the confidence so that they do make the right decisions, so that freaking 60 Minutes doesn't do a report and give ammunition to hateful people like this gym teacher to justify their hate. You know, we don't need that. We really don't need that. So yeah, if anybody in chat has any thoughts on that specific story, or ideas you have, especially if you're a parent. I'm not a parent, so I'm not equipped to be the voice talking on this. But it's okay. I'm prepared to give the platform to whoever is and wants to take on that role. Totally ready to give this platform, and that's why I'm building this platform. Not just for me. I know I'm the one up here talking, but one day this platform's gonna turn into really what it's meant to be, which is not gonna be me. I'm gonna be like hanging out in the sand somewhere, soaking up sun, listening. We had Adam jump in for a second, but we lost him. Been good. I know Adam is a father of a young child. Would have been great to have his insight on this. Hi TikTok, how you doing? My name's Elise. It's nice to meet you. You're welcome to say hello. Introduce yourself. Before I get into this other article, let's look at solidarity. Concept of solidarity, which is what we need, right? Like, we need solidarity to support people and to support a movement of civil rights, of any kind of rights, whatever you want to call them. There needs to be solidarity, and so I've just got the Wikipedia page open for solidarity. Check this one out, see what they say. That's an interesting image, powerful image. All these like workers under the soil, putting their fist up, and their fists all come together into one big powerful fist. Great image. Solidarity is aware. I'm gonna start over. Solidarity is an awareness of shared interests, objectives, standards, and sympathies, creating a psychological sense of unity of groups or classes. Simple as that, right? So yeah, that child coming home and telling their parent, I've changed my pronouns, and then realizing shortly afterwards, oh, it's really not who I am. I'm not going to change my pronouns. I just wanted to do that to help my friend out, not be alone. Like, that's solidarity. That's that student. And, me using this platform to talk about something that, in the grand scheme of things, hey Dawn, good to see you. Happy Wednesday, great to see you. Happy Pride Month. I know I've talked about this subject on my platform several times, but I just wanted to kick off Pride Month, bringing it back up. Just read a horrific article about. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Dawn. Yeah, I was just talking about that, how I'm not the right voice to be talking about this, but it's okay. I think it's okay. It's not the end of the world, but I do need to be cautious to keep my platform open. So I do appreciate you being here, Dawn. I hope you can provide some insight. So specifically what I'm talking about right now is in regards to children. Because the article that I looked at was about a school district that penalized a teacher for defying the new regulations in their school district that would allow children to be addressed by the pronouns of their choice. And this teacher said, no, my religion says I can't do that. I won't do that. And then the teacher went on to weaponize solidarity to prove his point, in addition to his religious point. So I found that to be a really interesting part of the article that we could focus on in our conversation here. Not so much the religious, because that's an icky, sticky, whatever. I don't want to involve in this conversation, but like solidarity is good, right? So I'm looking at the Wikipedia article for solidarity, kind of understanding the history of solidarity, the different forms of solidarity, but yeah, that teacher had cited a news report that highlighted gender dysphoria among children who are confused. Like this movement of allowing children to choose their own pronouns and supporting trans rights and general LGBTQ plus rights is confusing for children. Which, if there's scientific evidence of this happening, of children or people making a choice and then reversing their choice, it's valid, right? But instead of demonizing it like this teacher and weaponizing it like this teacher is doing, I think it's powerful for us to understand how we can better engage children in this conversation so that doesn't happen, right? Co-opting our terms. Which term are you specifically talking about? And I shared a story that I heard on TikTok. A mother shared a story of her child coming home and saying, Mom, I'm changing my pronouns. And the mom saying, okay, let's talk about it. And the child saying, no, I don't want to talk about it. I've made this decision. And so then the mom says, okay, that's fine. And the child comes back after some time and says, Mom, actually, I've realized I don't want to change my pronouns, but I wanted to because someone at school today announced that they were changing their pronouns, and I knew that they were going to be alone and that they were going to be bullied and going to have trouble. So, I wanted to change my pronouns too so that I can be in support of them. Not using the word solidarity, but the concept of solidarity, like this shared interest, objective standards, sympathies. And later on in this article, it does talk about the different channels and avenues people can take in solidarity. It specifically is talking a lot about the history of solidarity for like the workers' movement. But solidarity is an overarching concept that can apply to any community or any interest, objective standards, or sympathies. So in this case, this is the sympathies of a child seeing their friend embark on a difficult journey and wanting to be in solidarity with them. Without the parents or the teachers giving them active tools about how they can best act in solidarity. Because the children aren't really engaged with this conversation. Because like their minds are too young, they're too pure, and that's a mistake, I believe. That's a mistake, because if we're going to be giving rights to these children, which has happened across a federal level, rights have been given to children, trans children, which is fabulous. It's fabulous. But now there's reports coming out saying, well, we gave all these rights and we created this culture where kids can make their own choices and kids are making the wrong choices. And it's like, no, we shouldn't demonize that. Maybe that's happening, yes. But it's happening because we're not engaging them with this conversation. As adults, as people, not even adults, just people. We're treating them like they're not people quite yet. But then we got to give them their rights. If they do make that choice, then we got to give them their rights. And it's like, well, yeah, let's give them their rights and let's equip them with the tools of being able to process this. And I haven't heard this perspective in this conversation before. Like that TikTok story I saw of that mother was the first time I've heard anybody share that. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Kids must be hella confused right now. Not about themselves, but about how to support their friends. Because this, at the end of the day, this is still a minority issue, right? So the majority, they're not having any personal struggles with this, but they are, though, because they're seeing people that they love, even if they're strangers. They're seeing strangers in hurtful situations, and they're wanting to help. Like, I think children of all people in our society are the most naturally instinct to be civilized, to be polite, to be thinking of others, right? So I haven't really heard this argument. And fuck all the religious arguments about it. Like, I'm not even gonna give time of day to anybody that's gonna make that argument. But like, the teacher did make a very powerful statement in saying, that there's gender dysmorphia or dysphoria going on. Yeah. Yeah, Don, you bring up a good point. I wasn't even going to bring that up. I mean, this is just like the article that I was looking at is just on the concept of like pronouns alone. Because I think that when it comes to medical treatments, even with any other kind of medical treatments for children, there's ages of consent like that, but it's just like just normal gender identity, not actual transition. Which is a whole other topic I'm not bringing up in this conversation. This is just pronouns. Pronouns have become like a common thing. Don, I don't know if you interact with any Gen Zers or younger people. Yeah. Cut you up, Don. You're good. Thank you. Gender pronouns are like, it's a weird thing. In my generation, we did not grow up. Like, we did grow up understanding that people possibly will identify as other genders, and you've got to respect that. But like, now it is a proactive part of how you introduce yourself to somebody. And oftentimes teachers will allow children to announce their gender, their pronouns when they do roll call at the beginning of the year. so that it's all out on the table and everybody knows everything. On TikTok, it is very common for users to have their pronouns listed in their profile, even if they're the standard pronouns, even if it's like, you know, my pronoun is she, her, no surprise. But like, it is a proactive part of how young people engage with each other, and I think it's powerful. Like, I've heard several people argue that it's nonsense and that children don't know these things yet, and it's silly, and it's just making room for children to make wrong choices for themselves. Which, when you start talking about hormone therapy and other medical treatments, yes, like, then it becomes dangerous, and, you know, the conversation is a bit deeper and it's beyond what we're talking about here. But if it's just like simply having the confidence and the ability to express yourself the way you want to, it's standard. It's what younger generations are accepting of and proactive of these days here in the U.S. I don't know about internationally, but in the U.S. It has growing pains. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. It's growing pains. And it's fine. Growing pains always exist. Like, change always requires patience and yeah. But I just, like, I'm always cautioning my friends when I hear them, when they're talking about their children, and they hear their children, you know, like, having unique queer type gender identities, or their friends or whatever. I'm like, don't be so quick to judge it and to demonize it. Like, dude, that's like self-expression at its finest. No one's hurting anybody. People are just like learning how to express themselves, and there's gonna be growing pains. There's gonna be misidentifications, and we can't, just because that's happening, we can't say, oh, it's gotta stop. We gotta stop this culture altogether. And that's what that teacher was trying to say. That teacher was trying to say, no, it's just creating problems. We need to just identify people as what they're born as, which there's a whole segment of a population that would not be able to fit into that, because it's like, they're not born with one, you know, and then it's on the parents to make the choice, and the doctor, you know, the modern medicine is trying to tell them, oh, well, you got to make a choice, and this is the better choice. Like, that's a sticky one. I've never heard of that term. What's your... What does that mean? And you're welcome to not answer that question, Dawn, or if you want to answer that question privately to me as well, you are welcome to. But I've never heard of what you mean by that. But yeah, like teenagers, and I think even like elementary school. Oh, I see. Okay. Even like elementary, I see. Elementary age children are proactively announcing their pronouns, even if they're standard. You know, even if they're assumed. Don, I got a cool background for today's conversation. You might like it. I like this one. I'm just like sitting having tea on the patio while there's like this crazy rainbow storm going on in the background. Growing pains. Yeah, I like it too. I think I'm gonna keep this background even beyond Pride Month. I mean, it's great. It's wonderful. I love it. I've never seen that before. Like double rainbow with like crazy lightning storm going on. I love it. All right, so back onto the topic of solidarity. Just so we can better understand this concept, because like solidarity is something that we talk about on this channel all the time in regards to lots of different marginalized communities, not just during Pride. It's the ties in a society that bind people together as one. The term is generally employed in sociology and other social sciences such as philosophy and bioethics. Let's see, the discourse. I thought this was interesting. According to Emil Durkheim, the terms of social solidarity correlate with types of society. Durkheim introduced the terms mechanical and organic solidarity. This is like the main part of this article I wanted to look at. In their book, The Division of Labor in Society from 1893. So this is a term that's been around for some time. In society exhibiting mechanical solidarity, its cohesion and integration comes from homogeny of individuals. People feel connected through similar work, educational, and religious training and lifestyle. So it's like where we mimic one another, which is how I feel like perhaps that story of that child coming home and saying to their mother, I want to change my pronouns, is more of this type of solidarity, because they feel like they can better support their other community members by making them not alone, by being in this kind of mechanical solidarity with them. Mechanical solidarity normally operates in traditional and small-scale societies. In simpler societies, solidarity is usually based on kinship, ties of familial networks. Organic solidarity comes from interdependence that arises from specialization of work and the complementaries between people, a development which occurs in modern and industrialized societies. I see, Don. I see. I have a friend that requests to be called gender fluid in that case. They don't like to be considered trans. They'd rather be considered gender fluid. So yeah, I thought that this kind of like division of the definition of solidarity is something good to see, in like as we educate our children as they embark on this decision, as our Constitution and our laws is starting to empower children to make this decision themselves of how they want to identify, how they want to express themselves, which was typically a decision reserved only for adults up until recently. Now we're leaving that decision up for children. It's going to cause solidarity to happen. You know, either somebody is not going to want to feel left out. They're going to want to, you know, there are some people that like they attach themselves to movements of solidarity. I don't know if there's like a specific psychology term for that. And there's nothing wrong with that either. But like going into that type of work equipped with an understanding of yourself and your own confidence would help you be a better ally and a better civilized person, a better, you know, part of society. Because then the bigots are going to weaponize mistakes that get made and say, oh, you know, we can't entrust you with your own rights to make your own decisions because you're just going to want to do what's unique. You're going to want to just do whatever is cool and in solidarity at that time. down the music a little bit. Although individuals perform different tasks and often have different values and interests, the order and very solidarity of society depends on their reliance on each other to perform their specified tasks. Organic here is referring to the interdependence of component parts, and thus social solidarity is maintained in more complex societies through the interdependence of its component parts. For example, farmers produce the foods to feed the factory workers who produce the tractors that allow the farmer to produce food. And in moments of solidarity, even though those two people are doing completely different work, they both like respect and acknowledge each other, and respect and acknowledge that they have a common purpose or a common goal that they want to achieve. In our modern society, this is the kind of solidarity we need to focus on. Yeah, who cares, Don? That's what I'm trying to say. Like, well, we shouldn't demonize people that are just like, I think I have heard of a term of people that are just doing what's on trend and just, you know, and who cares? Don says, I still have holes in my face because I followed a trend. Yeah. Now, the Dawn, though, can you think back of any time of where you compromised your values to do that? Where you compromised your own personal identity to follow a trend? You know, and I think that that's where it becomes important to care a little bit. You know, like ultimately, who cares if you follow trends, right? But if you start compromising, and this is not causing violence towards, it's not like violence towards someone else, it's violence towards yourself, you know, which I think that indirectly and in the long run, if we are constantly oppressing our own self-confidence and our own self-identity, it can lead to other forms of oppression, other forms of discrimination, other forms of hate. And that's what we're trying to address here, right? So, I don't know. Like, and especially when it comes to children, I think it's really important to be like, yes, solidarity is important. Keeping up with the trends and finding your own identity within these trends is important. Do those things, just like continuously, you know, self-evaluate. And like, we don't even need to say that just to the kids. We got to say it to adults too. You know, I got to say it to myself sometimes. And yes, if a mistake is made, it's fine. You know, if a compromise, and then we end up realizing later on that there's a compromise there, it's like, oh, this is not really who I am. It's fine that we make those mistakes. We're gonna make those mistakes. But if there's shame, so like if we're demonizing when people make mistakes, when they follow trends, and then we demonize it like that teacher did here. I'll show you the quote from the exact article. So it says, during his comments at the public meeting, Cross, who's the teacher in question, said he expressed concern for students with gender dysphoria and cited a recent report on CBS News broadcast 60 Minutes that featured some transgender children who decided to reverse the transitioning process. So like, all of that is shame. That's shame. That's like, see, they made mistakes, therefore we shouldn't support this. And it's like, yeah, we shouldn't demonize or shame mistakes being made when we're navigating our path through life trying to find ourselves, because then it's going to cause people to like hold themselves up and be like, oh no, I'm meant to stay in this box, this is my box, you got your box. Like, no, see, so because then that creates discrimination, oppression, prejudice. So the solidarity is important. And, you know, people making mistakes, practicing different identities is important too. But it's also important for them to be like, to feel confident that they can admit that they made a mistake, right? Instead of being like, oh, I made a mistake. But if like, my colleagues find out that I made a mistake and I go back on it, like they're gonna shame me for that. So I'm just gonna live the rest of my life in this false identity so that way I can avoid the shame. And it's like that's problematic as well. You know what I mean? So here's another theorist, Peter Kropotkin. A connection between the biological and the social was of principal importance for the idea of solidarity as expressed by the anarchist ideologist and former prince. Oh, it's a prince. Peter Kropotkin, 1842 to 1921. His most famous book, Mutual Aid, A Factor of Evolution, written partly in response to the Huxleyan social Darwinism. He studied the use of cooperation as a survival mechanism in human societies at their various stages, as well as with animals. According to him, mutual aid or cooperation within a species has been an important factor in the evolution of social institutions. Solidarity is essential for mutual aid. Supportive activity towards other people does not result from the expectation of reward, but rather from instinctive feelings of solidarity. Well, that's interesting. Skip all this. He advocated an alternative economic and social system which would be coordinated through a horizontal network of voluntary associations with goods distributed in compliance with the physical needs of the individual rather than according to labor. Yeah, it's right, Don. It's the flow of how things work. But you know what I think is one positive thing that's going to come from this gender dysmorphia that the guy, or dysphoria that the teacher mentioned is, you know, all kids right now are growing up identifying and respecting pronouns, which means that gender identities and the grand, you know, cultural understanding of gender are gonna be like all over the place, right? So like when I was growing up, even though, you know, like we knew about people and we accepted that people, you know, but we still like judged them, you know what I mean? It was like, it was still normal to make jokes and be disrespectful to people that didn't fit into the norms. So yeah, I'm taking that back. No, there was definitely bigotry in what I was taught socially as a kid, right? And so then I grew up with an understanding of this is what the gender identity of men is, and this is what the gender identity of women is. Even though I kind of grew up myself with a unique, and I like struggled with it. I struggled like, oh, you're kind of masculine. Like, I'm kind of masculine, Dawn. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. I'm a little bit masculine. But who gives a fuck? Like, what does that even mean, you know? But like when I was younger, it was a struggle for me. You know, like girls would make fun of me, you know, everybody would make fun of me. They would like, even before I really even had a sexuality, the kids were already making assumptions about my sexuality and teasing me about it because I was like masculine. But now when kids grow up, that like idea of what like the gender identity of men versus gender identity of women is gonna be like completely different. Like even though there is going to be like the majority of people are gonna fit within those norms that were standard before, there's gonna be just this tolerance, and it's not even a tolerance because it's just gonna be the cultural understanding that not all men are like this, not all women are like this. And I think that's gonna be really powerful for everybody and going to help children make better decisions for themselves. You know, not only about like what gender identity they're going to express, like what I'm talking about in this conversation, but also about like what career path you're going to pursue. Because, you know, whenever I was, making that decision for myself, transitioning from high school to college and making that decision, there were, like, those gender types played into how we decided we were going to, like, pave the path for our career. They really did. And yes, there was like this, women's lib had already happened, and it was like, oh, women can do whatever they want, like they can go to college, you can do what you want, but there still was a gender identity of like, but if you're going to be a doctor, if you're going to be a lawyer, like this is the kind that you're going to be. I always say this about the arts, right? Because I look at like the musical artists that I like, which unfortunately, I'm so grateful for the artists and the art that I get to appreciate, but unfortunately in this conversation, most of them are men. And it's not because I prefer men over women, but it's because I think, my theory is that in that career, men are, the identity, the male identity is that they can be pushing the limits, they can be innovative, they can be artistic, while women that go into that career path are sexualized and popized, because that's like their place in it. And so a woman could be a very artistic, forward-thinking artist, and when she puts her work out, even if she gets noticed and develops a career, the art is like, kind of commercialized to fit that gender role. And like I've seen a lot of incredible female artists, but I find their music to be too pop for me. And men will do that too. Like men will fall into that category too, where their art gets popped or sexualized or whatever. But then like the opportunity for a male artist to succeed as like an indie artist, just doing unique, doing whatever they want, paving their own path, is like much more feasible. And so I think like this whole thing with the kids now just accepting that gender expression is unique for everybody, I think is going to break down all of those walls, and it's not going to be like this big revolutionary thing. It's just going to be this subtle cool thing that when children grow up and go down their career paths, they're not going to be inhibited by any kind of gender role. It's interesting, Dawn. See, so you're already seeing that. You're already seeing that difference. That's cool. Thank you for sharing that story. Well, I'll share it. So Dawn says, I come from a very open, non-judgmental family, but my 4-year-old niece saw me wearing all pink one time and was horrified, and myself and my brother and my family had no idea that she would react like that because nobody in our family does it. It's very interesting. But the niece who's 6 years old and goes to school and knows about pronouns didn't even bat an eye. So that's it. That's the exact, so that 4-year-old, their exposure to how the world should work is probably, outside of the parents, from pop culture, which hasn't caught up. It's starting to catch up. Who was it? The one artist. There's like a rap artist, a male rap artist, who pissed everybody off. Nas X. I think that's his name. Lil Nas X. Which is good, but they're getting exposed to it in schools, and you can't stop that. Like the schools and social media, like the normalization of unique pronouns is already normalized there. And yeah, so it's going to make a huge difference in just like these subtle assumptions we make about how we're supposed to express ourselves and how we're supposed to go about in our lives. So I think that's good. I think it's a good thing. Yes, there's going to be growing pains, and there's going to be confusions and acts of solidarity, like what we're talking about right now, but in the end, I think it's going to be great. I'm happy about it. But fuck, like, I didn't even start breaking down the barriers of my own gender identity until, like, 4 years ago. I'm almost 40. And like, I went my entire adulthood thinking that I was like a liberated woman that was beyond all those things. But no, I was still in those things. I was still restricted by what I thought a woman is supposed to behave like. You know, if a woman is going to do, if the woman is going to be in a male dominated industry or male dominated work, she has to be like super strong and like super able to be patient with misogyny. And that's what I did. But now I've come to learn that that's just like internalized misogyny on my part. Like I was just perpetuating it and making it worse. So yeah, I think it's good. I think our kids are in for a very cool future in that regards. So fuck that teacher that doesn't want. Here, I want to show that article again. It's just like, it's crazy what that teacher said. So they said this at a public meeting. This is in Virginia. I love all my students, but I will never lie to them regardless of the consequences, he said. I'm a teacher, but I serve God first, and I will not affirm that a biological boy can be a girl and vice versa because it's against my religion. It's lying to a child. It's abuse to a child. It's sinning against our God. It's abuse to a child. I don't know. Solidarity is re-emerging concept in contemporary philosophy within various subfields of laws, ethics, and political philosophy. Early ancient philosophers such as Socrates and Aristotle discussed solidarity as a virtue ethics framework because in order to live a good life, one must perform actions and behave in a way that is in solidarity with the community. One notable approach is bioethics, is to identify solidarity primarily as a three-tiered practice enabled at the interpersonal, communal, and contractual and legal levels. This approach is driven by the quest to differentiate between the diverse applications of the concept and to clarify its meaning, both historically and in terms of its potential as a fruitful concept for contemporary moral, social, and political issues. The moral practice of bioethics is significantly influenced by Kant's concept of the categorical imperative. Yeah, it's disgusting. So then that teacher got like dismissed, like on leave with pay. And he's suing. The teacher is suing the school district for doing that to him. But dude, you weren't even fired. You were just like, you're just on leave with pay. Like that sounds pretty, well, it sounds pretty luxurious actually. But his ego got hurt. All right, I'm gonna look up commentary. To see like, I just want to see like what the current like rhetoric is around this. And now he has time to read the Bible. Yeah, right. And get paid for it. Damn. Jonelle, good to see you. Happy Wednesday. Thanks for joining. Happy Pride Month. So you entered a male-dominated profession in 1977. You put up with a lot of crap. But stay true to yourself. So like I have a new standard now where I don't put up with a lot of crap. You know what I mean? Like I won't do it. I won't do it. You know, like that's the boundary that I've made for myself. And I didn't start making that boundary until just a few years ago. Actually, really even more recent than that. I could say maybe even only like a few weeks. You know, because I was still putting up with some crap. And not putting up crap doesn't mean that like you cancel everybody. It just means that you like you call them out immediately. You have those conversations immediately. And I will admit that in any other time, I mean, even now it's still freaking difficult. It causes a lot of trouble for me. And it probably does affect my possibility for success. Did you ever have any like successes, Jonelle? You feel like? I'd love to hear a story if you feel comfortable sharing a specific story of like when not fighting back. Maybe fighting back is the wrong word, because a lot of times fighting back on something doesn't actually accomplish the goal, but like just like making someone aware of what their behavior was problematic or offensive, and then receiving the response from them that they actually listened to you. You know, they may have not changed their behavior, because that's a big ask. That's a really big ask, but they actually listened, you know. Hey Mimpy, good to see you. Happy Pride Month. Hi, Vanna. Oh, Vanna, thank you for being here. Thanks for hanging out. Aloha. Much aloha to you. No tea bags, because we don't do tea bagging around here. Only loose leaf tea. And there's a reason why. There's a very important reason why we practice Kung Fu Cha and drink loose leaf tea. There's a lot of reasons with the tea bags. Let's see, where should I start? So like the machines that pack tea bags, you know, the tea bag is very small. It's this tiny little thing, you know, tiny little thing. But then the machines, they're packing tons of tea into the small. Sounds like you don't put up a lot of crap anymore. Yeah, they can't put, it's like really hard to put good quality tea into a tea bag. And you know, like that's a whole other conversation, and please like follow the channel, hang out with us. Like I stream daily and offer a lot of education into like tea quality and how to enjoy better tea. Yeah, it's hard to put good tea into a tea bag. Not impossible. Don't bag shame. But there's another important reason about tea bags. Even if they seem to be made out of paper, they all have plastics. Like they have like a plastic layer on them. You know how else would you put, you know, a paper tea bag into hot water and it won't dissolve? It's because there's plastic there, and there is a lot of microplastics that get released into the tea. And there's plenty of studies. You can Google it. You'll see there's plenty of studies about the exact amount of microplastics that get released. And you know, there's microplastics in lots of other products that we consume. But it's like there's so many other benefits to drinking loose leaf. So yeah, we do Kung Fu style. It's not as convenient as the tea bag. There are certainly infusers that you can use. There are infusers that you can use that are as convenient as a tea bag. But then there's also value to like this ritual of preparation and enjoying in small amounts and repeatedly re-steeping the tea over and over again. Yeah, come by more, Vena. Here, I'm gonna. How I wonder. Did you find me just through the just chatting? Um, you found me just through the just chatting channel. Because I don't know if I've seen you before. And you said aloha. Are you in Hawaii? Oh, I can see you are. Oh, I'm checking out your channel now.
All right, program. Robot, can you make us some egg rolls?
No, no egg rolls. Although that sounds good. You're a memer, not a streamer. I like that. Cool. I just followed you. I'll check out your streams. It looks as if you're in Hawaii. I used to live in Hawaii. I live in Vegas now, the 9th island now. I don't even know Maddie Wongi or Chelsko. I don't even know those people either. Yeah, I mean, we're getting microplastics and so many other things other than just tea bags, but it's just one place. Yeah, Vena. Shout outs. We can be Ohana. Take care. Pure aloha. Much love, pure aloha. If you, I don't know, like how Hawaiian you, or like how, like where island you're from or whatever, but on Oahu, my good friends, that's where I live. Uncle Clay's House of Pure Aloha. I'm repping. I rep hard. If you know Uncle Clay, you know Uncle Clay. He's like the purest, the purest ambassador of aloha there is. Who wants to drink plastic? Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna go check out Jonelle's story. Oh wow, what? Dude, the men were like that much of jerks? Jonelle, I can't believe that. No one ever drove off and left me at a crime scene when it was completed. Most of the females, 5 of them, were left behind at one time or another. Just rude. I'm sorry you had to work in that kind of environment. I could only imagine working in that kind of male-dominated. I mean, the biggest thing that I deal with is like having my intelligence and my leaderships invalidated. That's about it. Yeah, I've never been put into a dangerous place. I mean, that's one thing when you work within a misogynistic environment, like how I do, not like how you did obviously, but like how I do. You're like overprotected because they assume that like you can't handle your own safety. It's just assumed you can't handle your own safety, and you're like treated like a little flower, which, you know, can be advantageous at times. But a lot of times I like to just be like cautious and aware of my own safety. And yes, sometimes I do need not protection, but like what do you call that? You just need a buddy, even if it's a female. You know, being by yourself, man or woman. Yeah, Dawn, that's what I deal with. That's exactly what I deal with. That's exactly what I deal with. And there are some cultures that I deal in that do sexualize me. Like, sexualize me, not just like, oh, you're female, therefore you should be delicate and you don't know these things, but like really sexualize me, like make me feel uncomfortable, like sexually not safe. like the potential of something inappropriate happening. Like there are some cultures with even like dear friends of mine, people that I've known for a long time, people that I consider to be like my brother, that will like automatically make this assumption that they can talk to me a certain way. And I used to accept it and just deal with it. But now I don't. Like I will immediately drop whatever's happening and say, hey, we're about to have a very uncomfortable conversation with each other. I want you to know that the reason why I'm having this conversation with you is not because I'm angry with you or, you know, I'm going to slap you and cancel you. No, I'm having this conversation with you because I want you to have strong relationships with women in the future. And what you just said to me not only made me feel uncomfortable, but makes me worried that you treat other women this way. And, brother, that's just not how it works. It's just not how it works. There was only one time, and I hope that never happens again. I hope I just make better decisions and prepare better. There was only one time where I activated my, whatever you want to call it, damsel in distress ability to get myself out of a sticky situation. There was one time where that happened. And I cried. And, you know, I used my tears to activate, you know, and I'm ashamed that I had to do it, but I feel like in that moment I had to do it. But now going forward, I just know I need to be wiser and how I arrange my logistics and decisions that I make so I don't get into that kind of sticky situation again. Because I was in a very dangerous situation. I had to cry. And it worked. It worked, but I wasn't happy about it. I was like, that's not who I am. I'm not a crybaby. I'm not a damsel in distress. Strong human being. Yeah, that's interesting, Jonelle. So that's like that sentiment is that's inhibiting, you know. You know what's a new thing now that's happening in professional settings because of the Me Too movement and all of that is that men are like proactively not engaging with female colleagues out of fear that their interactions with women will be interpreted wrongly and they'll be accused of, you know, so it's not exactly what you said there, but it's kind of in that similar thought that like being a woman now is a handicap because it like scares men from wanting to be near you or work with you because, well, like in your case, what you said, like they're going to be too worried about your safety that they're not going to be doing their job properly, right? But now is the case is they're going to be too worried of a potential sexual harassment claim that they won't work with women. And that's fucked up too. You know, same thing with like the trans situation we're talking about today. That like they themselves may claim to not be a bigot and not hate, but you know, then may have like some kind of prejudice in the back of their mind of like, oh, I'm not going to interact with those kinds of people because of, you know, something might be misinterpreted. So there is something wrong with it. Maybe not for you or for me, but there's something wrong with it in like the grand scheme of our society, because anything that disables us from having civilized relationships with each other and working with each other and progressing with each other is problematic, right? So I think it is problematic, and it's okay like if you don't yourself feel like it's problematic, just like I myself don't feel like it's problematic. You know what I see it as? Like when I was fundraising for TLET, when I was like going around asking investors for money, there was a big issue with people saying, you know, like investors won't work with you strictly because you're female. They just like won't work with you because you're female. And a lot of women complained about it. And for me, I was like, I see that actually as an opportunity, because like that's just an immediate filter. Like if they don't want to work with women, that means that they have some type of limitation in their mind, in their heart. And so I'm okay with that. But in the grand scheme of things, it is problematic. It is problematic because it's inhibiting them from working with good people. But it's just as problematic as like tokenism is. And I've talked about that before. You know, like specifically bringing certain people into your team to like create some kind of sense of diversity. Like just bringing them in because of the fact that they represent that part of the community you want represented in your diversity, without truly looking at the internal culture to make it inclusive. Like tokenism is going to cause you to work with people that may not be the right fit, because you're just kind of like forcing something in to meet some type of diversity quota without attracting the right member. Protection is an instinct, nothing to be ashamed of. You're right. But I think that like in Jonelle's case, she was working in an environment where I'm sure she was trained properly on how to handle her own protection. Just like the men were trained how to handle their own protection. So perhaps like this additional stress that her male colleagues had, that they needed to protect her or needed to be extra mindful about protecting her, was unnecessary. Oh, about me crying? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I am kind of, I did it to protect myself. Yeah, I did it because I needed to do it. Yes, you're right about that. I am not ashamed that I did what I needed to do. What I am ashamed about is that like I didn't put in the proper work to have my logistics, because like it was a logistics issue. It was simply a logistics issue. Traveling, while I was traveling, I didn't prepare, and I shouldn't have even been in that situation in the first place. So like that's what I was ashamed about. That like instead of being smart and like planning ahead and making sure that I wouldn't have been in that situation. But yeah, I cried and did what I needed to do to like trigger, you know, the male's ego, because I knew that would work, and it worked like a charm, like poof, immediately. But yeah, I just need to be more cautious and more careful ahead of time about planning and being smart, because yeah, I didn't plan, and I just kind of haphazardly was like, oh, I'll be fine, and then whoops, all right, nope, not fine, gotta get out of here. How am I gonna do this? Yeah, shit happens. I kind of knew ahead of time, but I was just pushing it. I was like pushing the limits of what I could do. I kind of did that. But shit happens. Shit happens. And it could have been a much worse situation. All right, so I'm looking up articles on gender dysphoria in children. Like there's a lot there. Honestly, there's a lot there. But there's not a whole lot on the specific issue around like decision reversals. You know, obviously 60 Minutes did a special on it, so there's got to be some research. Where else did they get the information for doing that? There's got to be something there, but okay. But here's an NBC News. So like this is interesting. I'll look at this one because I think it's a valid thing to talk about. It truly is a valid thing to talk about, but I also like don't buy in that like we need to demonize it. Like that's no, we don't need to demonize it. We just need to try to understand it and better equip our children. Yeah, right. Yeah, we'll see a lot more data in the years to come because this is like really kind of a new concept. Like the concept of trans rights for children is very new. It's very, very new. Just a few months ago was the first article that I'd found where on a federal level, you know, they included that trans rights for everybody, and just a few places have like fought that. There's Tennessee, Florida, and what was the other state? They completely divided and said no, this is not going to apply in our schools. All right, let's look at this article. But yeah, I couldn't find any peer-reviewed data on it, which I'm sure you're right, Dawn. That'll be coming in the years to come. But this was published about a year ago, or a year and a half ago. Media's detransition narrative is fueling misconceptions, trans advocates say, because really, like the media is the only place that I've seen any talk about what they're calling here detransition, right? Like that a kid that makes a choice. They want to transition and then reverse that choice. And it's like, oh no, see, they're reversing their decision. It means that we shouldn't give them the rights. In early October, the UK's Sky News ran a story about the Detransition Advocacy Network, a new charity founded by Charlie Evans, a former transgender man who detransitioned in 2018. Evans told Sky News that hundreds of young trans people were seeking her help to return to their sex assigned at birth. As she said, more resources are urgently needed for people experiencing post-transition regrets. I'm in communication with 19 and 20-year-olds who have had full gender reassignment surgery who wish they hadn't, and their dysphoria hadn't been relieved. They don't feel better for it. They don't know what their options are now. News outlets across the UK and US covered the phenomenon on detransitioning. The BBC dedicated an hour to the topic on two of its flagship programs in late November, and right-wing outlets such as the Daily Wire covered the topic in their explicitly transphobic spin. New York Magazine published a piece last month about another advocacy group for ex-trans people, where one interviewee expressed concern that many teenage women have been convinced too quickly that the only solution is to change their sex. No one disputes that transition regret does exist and that there are trans people who return to the sex they were assigned at birth. However, trans advocates say some of the recent coverage around the topic portrays detransitioning as much more common than it actually is, fueling misconceptions about the gender transition process and painting trans people as just temporarily confused or suffering from misdiagnosed psychological disorder. This misleading information, they say, can have serious real-world consequences. I think the reason why detransition stories are popular is this given time is because it's neatly fitted into the idea that young people especially are being made to be trans. The media are conjuring up a panic about trans lives, and the first victims of that panic are the young people who are indirectly being told that they're a phase. How common is it? There is an estimated 1.4 million transgender adults in the US. It tentatively estimates there are between 200 to 500,000 trans people in Britain and Northern Ireland. While the information regarding how many trans people detransition is sparse, those who work with the trans community say it is uncommon. The information that does exist appears to corroborate Asquith's claim. In 2015 survey of nearly 28,000 people conducted in the U.S., only 8% of respondents reported detransitioning, and 62% of those people said they only detransitioned temporarily. The most common reason for detransitioning, according to the survey, was pressure from a parent, while only 0.4% of respondents said that they detransitioned after realizing transitioning wasn't right for them. See, so it's not even as significant as that teacher was making it out to be, as that 60 Minutes report was making it out to be. So the report in Sweden found that 2% of participants expressed regret. The numbers are even lower for non-surgical transition methods. 1.9% of adolescents who started puberty suppressants did not go on to pursue hormone therapy, typically the next step in the transition process. Stories about detransitioning often include misinformation not only about the prevalence of transition regret, but also about transitioning itself. They say misconceptions about the gender transition process, including at what age difference procedures are even considered, are widespread. We have people that are using media to educate themselves, and media is picking and mixing what they want to highlight and what they want to conflate or exaggerate. It's incredibly unhealthy. There's no role for medical intervention in a person who might be transgender, something that is not always made clear in media coverage. For a child who has not yet reached puberty, trans health experts recommend seeking mental health support, because even prior to disclosing a gender identity that is different from the one they were assigned at birth, trans youth can experience symptoms including depression, social isolation, and suicidal ideation. While medical guidelines advise that prepubescent children do not undergo hormone interventions, they state that allowing trans youth to socially transition, which can include taking on a new name and wearing a different style of clothes, can greatly benefit a child. So there you go, Don. That's to your point about best practice for children. They call it social transitioning. So that's interesting. That's a good way to put it. Social transitioning. It's letting your child be themselves and loving them for who they are, regarding children who haven't reached puberty. Once a child starts to experience puberty, health experts, including those in the UK, recommend a puberty blocker, as experiencing puberty when suffering from gender dysphoria can be traumatic for trans youth. In September, a false news story linking the use of puberty blockers to thousands of deaths went viral, thanks to no small part to the signal boosting of right-wing media outlets. Dr. Jack Turpin, a resident physician in psychiatry at Massachusetts General Hospital, who researches the mental health of trans youth, told us that puberty blockers are actually a pretty low-risk way to provide care for gentle dysphoric youth. Puberty blockers put puberty on hold so that the adolescents have more time to decide what they want to do next. This is important because while pubertal blockage is reversible, puberty itself is not. It's much more common to regret not getting puberty blockers than it is to regret getting puberty blockers. With any intervention, there are risks and benefits. Advocates say that media coverage around transgender issues and the public discourse can have a real-life impact on the lives of transgender people. Branstetter, who as the former spokesperson for the National Center of Transgender Equality spent years speaking to the press and following coverage about transgender issues, said the media too often focuses on the debate over trans people's validity and does not pay enough attention to the struggles and the joys of trans experience. Decisions about newsworthiness are too often pinned to skepticism about trans people or an assumption that your readers are more interested in whether trans people exist and not the actual experience of trans people. Coverage that questions the existence of trans identities can be particularly harmful to trans youth, an already vulnerable group that has an alarmingly high rate of attempted suicide and is subjected to disproportionately high rates of bullying and harassment. If one's gender identity is different than assigned at birth, the parents are being made to feel like it's wrong. That is not okay. Misleading coverage has also provoked misguided policy proposals and political maneuvers disguised as genuine concerns for children's health. Right, just like that teacher. He pointed to recent coverage about 2 Texas parents involved in a bitter divorce who disagreed over whether their 7-year-old is transgender. Following claims by the father that the child's mother, a pediatrician, was trying to chemically castrate their child, Republican lawmakers in the state inserted themselves into the matter and ordered an investigation into the family. Ted Cruz went so far to call parents who supported their trans children child abusers. And that's what that teacher, he used that exact same term, child abusers. Like, if you support trans rights for children, you're a child abuser. They said that the media coverage is tied to the bigotry that transgender people face in their daily lives. She pointed to the recent proposed bills in Texas, Georgia, and Kentucky that would ban access to trans healthcare for minors, such as puberty blockers and hormone replacement therapy, and said that the media coverage has played a large role in making anti-trans proposals like them politically fruitful. Those very proposals, should they be enacted into law, have a body count. It would be restricting healthcare as prescribed by doctors. It would be people crossing state lines in order to get the healthcare they need. It would not merely destroy lives, it would end lives. And all of this is based on false myths about who trans people are and what our healthcare entails. Some advocates say that the burst of detransition stories is just the latest in a cycle of media narratives that intentionally or not fuel misconceptions and stir up anti-trans sentiment. T. Ugwo, someone named T, that's interesting. Go get Chai, make sure Chai doesn't get into any trouble. That's funny, Jonelle. And drink lots of water if you're going outside. It's hot. It's a hot one out there today. Earlier this year, she debuted a project titled Yours Sincerely, The Fourth Estate, an archive of headlines and articles containing the word transgender from various UK and Australian news outlets between August 2018 and 2019. They told NBC News that stories about detransitioning and transition regret are the latest example of a broader trend. What is very obvious over the last few years is how there have been different wedge issues at different points, like the bathroom debates, and then this very interesting thing about trans women in sports. It's a pernicious cycle. In 2016, following North Carolina's reversal of a Charter City ordinance permitting transgender people to use bathrooms that align with their gender identity, the debate over which restroom trans people should use was covered widely, with some of the coverage veering transphobic. As recent as November 18, the trans bathroom debate was still being used in political ads. More recently, a slew of national victories by transgender athletes prompted a call for trans women to be banned from participating in women's sports events over concerns that they would make the playing field uneven. Less than 1/4 of Americans report having a close friend or family member who is transgender. This means that most people in the US and likely beyond, media coverage is the primary way they've received information about the community. This is part of the reason they say media outlets should be more aware of the impact their coverage could have on the trans community. It's about media taking responsibility from the repercussions of the rhetoric that is out there. It is fueling hate. Turban has a prescription for those disseminating misleading information about trans people. Talk to the experts. What would be useful if journalists and politicians reach out to transgender people and the physicians and researchers who actually study this topic rather than cisgender political pundits and people who don't care for trans youth. Yep. Well, there we go. This was like I'm sure if I dug deeper, I could find more. But it would all be media. This was media too. This is NBC News. But I couldn't find any peer-reviewed academic articles on it. But Don, you're right. I'm sure in the years to come, we will be seeing more and more of it. Interesting stuff. Chai protecting the plastic flamingos. It's so cute. Jonelle's dog is named Chai. Cute dog. Bitcoin's friend. Well, friend. As much of a friend that dogs can be. So I'm glad I read that article though, because it really. Where's my pup today? He is tired. Bitcoin. He's hot and tired. Bitcoin, it's cool over here. Come on, come here, buddy. He's here. He's just been napping in the front. I finally turned on the AC in the front. It just got way too hot. Oh, here he comes. It got way too hot for him in the front, so. Come on, baby. Come say hi. Don wants to say hi. Oh, here he is. Here he is. He's still pretty sore from our long walk the other day. So he's just been a sleepy boy. Tired, sleepy boy. Good boy. Yeah, so, you know, I guess, like, from that TikTok story that I shared about the mom saying that the... Yes. Lay down. Lay down, boy. Oh, you have a boxer and a pom? Like, you have two different dogs? Yeah, he's tired. Cute. Well, I thought maybe it was like a mix. It was like a boxer pom mix. That would be an interesting mix, huh? Yeah, Jonelle's dog, I forget what breed. Cute black dog. Long hair. Mid-size. You know, not as small as Bitcoin. Larger than Bitcoin. A Ponxer. I'm gonna look that up. I'm gonna see if that's a real dog that's been made before. Oh, they do exist. Oh my goodness, they're cute. Fluffy-tailed boxer. This one. Cute. Yeah, it's just like a fluffy, larger dog. Let's see Bitcoin's mix. He is a Cheagle. Right? About right. That's Bitcoin. Definitely see the beagle ears in him. Dogs are so precious. Look, this one exactly looks just like him. This one right here. You know, when I first got him, of course we saw the Chihuahua in him immediately, but we didn't know, like, what's the other, you know. And then I was at a party one time with him, and somebody says, "Oh, that's a Cheagle." I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, my dog. I've got one of those. It's a Cheagle. It's a Beagle Chihuahua." I was like, "Oh, that's it. Yeah, it's his twin. Look at it. It's like a picture of him out in the chili blossoms." Cutie. Don, you have your dogs up on your Facebook? I'll go look. I won't put them on, don't worry. But when I finish streaming, I want to go check out your dogs. I love dogs. All right, I should go. I think we went over enough today. Very good conversation. Don, I'm very grateful for your participation today on such a kind of sensitive subject. I mean, I don't think it's too sensitive. Some people think it is, but everybody deserves rights. That's what the Wednesday Constitution Study Group is all about, is always making sure that everybody has the same capacity for politeness. Not just giving politeness, but receiving politeness, That's how civility works. Just drank a rainbow. That was refreshing. Yep, I'll see you later, Don. Thank you so much for hanging out, and I'll see you tomorrow. We'll be hanging out tomorrow. The tea talks in the virtual tea house, and then Friday night will not be streaming because I'm going to be arriving in New York City. But Saturday I will be streaming all day. And Don, I really, 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 really hope that you can join us on Saturday. And I will have my phone set up to interact with chat the whole time. So. I won't just be filming and not interacting with chat. But yeah, there's going to be a series of events throughout 3 different community gardens with different tea services, performances, arts, workshops, and of course gardening. It's going to be a beautiful late spring day in New York City. Yeah, taste the rainbow. Okay, well, have a great rest tonight, and I'll be seeing everybody tomorrow. Much love.